name is Monica Brinkman. If this is the first time you're here, and joining me today is our wonderful co-host, Kenneth Ween.
Hi, folks.
And one of our new people to the show is our beautiful co-host, Celeste Vertical Duckworth. And I love her name. Now, today we are presenting a show that we hope will be positive. And there was only one person that I could think of that has so much positivity, even when things go wrong. And we asked Robert Wuagneux to be on the show. It's Wuagneux.
Yes, it is.
And he graciously accepted. So hello, Robert. Welcome.
Hey, Monica and Celeste, how are you guys today?
Great.
Doing great. I'm wearing my mask until we get over this stuff.
Okay.
So
Well, I'm at home, so I'm not going to be wearing a mask. So, and I'm actually out on the sun porch, which alone, I mean, I live in Vermont, so we've had a wicked winter, but today the sun is shining, and I figured I'd sit out here on the porch and just enjoy the day with you guys.
Yeah. Thank you, Robert. Now, if Robert's been a guest on our show before, but if you haven't met him, he is an educator, and I know, Robert, you've traveled the world a bit to educate others.
I do.
He also does something that I find is a wonderful contribution, and that is bringing positivity to others. But first, before we talk to Robert, Ken has selected a bit of poetry that we think will fit really nicely into the show today.
Well, Ken's got the hippie thing going on. I like it.
I did too.
I picked an Indian poet, as in Indian, not as in Native American this time. And because Robert, of course, does so much international work, and his wife does so much international work. So I picked Tagore, who is one of my favorite poets. And I wanted to just read, first off, something that really, one of his short poems that reminded me so much of our guest, Robert Wuagneux. I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy.
Amen.
Is it very simple?
Sounds like my life, totally.
Yep.
It does. I wanted to ask you something, Robert. People, and I know yourself also, are dealing with this whole COVID virus and restrictions that we're not used to. What can we do to get positivity into people who are going through this?
Well, you know, I think for me and for all the people that I meet, you know, that's a decision that you make. I could sit here and, as you know, I post many things on Facebook. Well, at least a couple of times a week.
Yes.
Thoughts. Those are my thoughts, and I live with those thoughts. And before I really am deliberate about what I post. And Celeste, I suggest that if you get an opportunity, check it out, because it's totally ecumenical. And it's not about you should be doing this or you should. No. These are the things that I embrace as a belief and say, hey, you know, here's what I found. But I have found that with positivity, it's a decision. And some people don't understand that they have a choice every second of every day to either accept the joy and wonder of life and the fact that you've been given this beautiful gift of life or not. And there's nothing that I could do or any one of the three of you can do to change someone's mind who doesn't want to feel that way. And it's really, it hurts me as a person because they don't realize that we're all one to begin with. We're all one. And as soon as we start to disenfranchise, whether it be your ethnicity or your religion or whatever reason you want to contribute to the reason why you want to feel different, you forget that we are all one. We come from the spiritual connection of life, and life is life doesn't come, it comes in this material, let's say, exposure of colors and themes, but the true essence of the spiritual part of life is totally one. It's believing in love, and love is the issue for me. And that's a constant theme for me. I come from that. I come from love, and I come from the idea of a gratitude, high gratitude to the Creator. Whoever you consume, well, whatever you consider to be your source of Creator, it still comes from a source that gives you the wonder and joy of living every day. And it's up to you to find it. It's not something that you buy in a box. It's not something
Yeah.
that you cultivate that by respecting yourself and respecting others. And as I've said many times in my post, you can't love someone if you don't love yourself first, because you can't give what you don't have.
Right.
You can't respect someone, all the things that, so what you're asking me is a very challenging question, because I would love to just say, I wish that I could be like Tinkerbell and just, hit my little wand, make everybody happy. But that it wouldn't be as effective as when one discovers joy, when one really does discover the value of service and the value of being exchanging with another person soul to soul. My goodness, their lives change. And
You
I
hit it.
We let people know we love them.
That's right.
That's a good question. How do we let people know we love them? Now, on a personal, I'll just tell a quick personal thing, because you had brought up COVID. It happens that my personal physician had COVID, and he had it really bad. I didn't know it at the time, but he was in the hospital for a few weeks. It took him quite a while. And when I came to his office the first time after that, and I hadn't known he had been ill. I just was my regular checkup. And I came in, and the first thing I did, as I always do, is I took him by the hand and I said, "Patrick, how are you?" And he teared up. He says, "Ken, I always look forward to your appointments because you care about me."
Yeah.
And
I always ask the doctor how he is also, because,
Yeah, I agree. And I can tell you recently what has happened. I play regularly for shut-ins and for the elderly. And I do it on a Zoom. It's a great setup. It's called Project Independence.
Excuse me, I got to interrupt you there because listeners don't necessarily know. You play music.
Oh, yes, I do. And I'm
a very fine musician, as you'll find out later in the show.
Quite accomplished on that, and it's been a long time thing, and that we've had that conversation in another day. But I'm still very, very active, and I like to bring. I've been blessed with the talent, and I like to share it as much as I can. And last year was absolutely brutal for live music because couldn't play it. But I did get a chance to play for many of these people who are ill and elderly, but it's called Project Independence, and they've set up a beautiful studio, so I never see them except on screen like this.
right.
Played, and to me, there's joy when you see people tapping with their fingers or nodding their heads, just smiling and just singing along, moving their lips. The joy that comes from being able to share your talent with other people and your happiness with other people, and then them saying, "Oh, play us another one, play us another one." These kinds of things, they're priceless. So your piece about
It's
service,
catching. If more people would do this,
that's right.
it would
If we're
just,
going to get a COVID type response, let's get it with happiness and joy. Let's get contagious with those kinds of things. And I find that for me, that really, it's so reciprocal that as you're giving, you're getting, and you're giving and you're getting, and it goes round and round and round. And this is what really makes for a joyous moment in life. And people say to me, "Don't you ever have a bad day?" And I'll say, "Well, I don't know what that means. Do things happen to me like today?"
Yeah, Robert was sharing with us today, folks.
let them know what happened and how you reacted.
Really upset and blamed my neighbor for being a little inconsiderate about parking in my driveway, but by the same token, I should have been paying attention. But anyway, the point is that yes, things happen, but how I choose to deal with those things, that's the difference. I don't look at it as somebody doing something to me. I look at it as, okay, this happens, so let's take a look at it. You know, what's the best of the situation? What's the best I can make of this situation?
Yeah, you're not playing the victim.
No victim stance. I truly, even when I worked in the corrections, I worked in corrections for quite a while, never took a victim stance, and I wouldn't tolerate victim stances in those counseling experiences, because victim stance gives you an excuse to blame someone else for your shortcoming. And I'm not going to take that. You know, I realized that my car is the one that backed into that car, despite the fact that I'm talking about this morning. Yeah, I could have gotten really upset about it. And the person was there. I tracked her down. And I didn't say, why did you park it? I said to her, look, I just backed into your car. Take it to so-and-so, please. So there was no energy associated with, you blithering. I didn't do it.
Right. No blame.
What?
No,
what is that?
Something that happened and you handled it.
Right.
I don't know about you guys, but one of the things I know about me is that as I've gotten older, I have less time and energy to waste on blaming and being defensive.
Absolutely.
If I get so much energy left, then it's precious to me. I want to use it for something positive.
Right. That's right.
For example, doing writing chats and friends, It's
right. Celeste, you're like that. You, with your Vertical Life magazine and now being on Writings, Chats, and Friends, and then many things that you do.
Yeah, I'd like to hear about
help people. You serve people.
Absolutely. Celeste, please tell us.
Well, I mean, I have the same, I have the same kind of ideology that Robert has. I think I don't. There's a lot of people I help, but I'm very strict with my time, in the sense that, and my kids always joke because their friends like to come and ask me advice, and they're like, now what my mom's gonna say. And so I would say, I would give them some advice, and if they came back like a couple of days later or a week, I said, did you do the first thing we talk about? And they're like, well, and I'm like, well, let's not have this conversation.
Right.
And so, and really, I volunteer for an organization that helps women at risk. And the thing that made me fall in love with the organization was the CEO. I asked her, I said, what do you think is the issue when the women don't necessarily make the transformation? They don't go through the classes. And she said, oh, they're just not ready. And it was really an awesome way to say it, because there's no judgment, there's nothing. She says, oh, they're just not ready, and it was kind of like, and then when they are ready, we'll be here with open arms, So, and I love that about her. But I help a lot of people within nonprofits, outside of nonprofits. My whole goal is, my thing is, I tell individuals, we have a lot of things that we need to fix in America. And I said, but you have to understand, you have to get through the emotionalism first.
That's right.
And so you have to be the type of person that, be non-judgmental and just allow a person to vent until they get to the point, and then you can start having a conversation.
Right, when they run out of gas.
When they run out of gas, exactly. and that's how I've always, done things in every situation. So I just believe that, but I believe that the community needs to do more in helping within their community. It's no longer where we had, like, for instance, homeless people. People would be like, oh, the homeless are downtown. We don't even have to think about that. But the homeless are in every neighborhood now.
Right.
Yes.
And so now I say to people, I'm like, you're going to have to come together in your community and not depend on nonprofits or the government,
right,
to help these individuals.
That's
Yeah,
right.
no,
They get a thing called donor disease. It's like donor disease. They stop helping themselves because they think everybody's going to help them. There's got to be a component of a responsibility and consequence.
Right.
What part of the United States are you from, Celeste?
I'm in Phoenix, Arizona right now.
It's okay. Great.
And yeah, like you were in the corrections. My mom, a lot of people in my family worked corrections. The lady who's the CEO here, a lot of the women we help are women that are coming out of the, jail and state, coming out. Those are a lot of women that we help. And our belief is that you have to get somebody to accept responsibility
Right.
when they said yes. What made you say yes?
That's
and
right.
Trouble.
I facilitated a program called Cognitive Self-Change.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what they used here in Vermont. And I did that for a long time. But that was, you could not just say I wanted to take it. You had to demonstrate the willingness through your behavior.
Absolutely.
If your behavior doesn't change, nothing changes. You can't think yourself out of a problem that you thought yourself into. You got to behave your way out of it.
And expect someone else to take care of it for you.
Yeah.
Right.
You got to do
I actually have seen this organization has like a 92% success rate. But I'm gonna tell you what, like you just said, when I see the transformation, now we're not just talking about somebody go and change your hair and cut your, and all that.
That's right.
We're talking about a transformation. Like when you see them again, you almost don't know who they were when they first came in, So, yeah,
100%, Celeste.
100%.
Absolutely.
Right.
One of the things that fascinated me.
They talk differently. They walk differently. They talk differently. They dress differently. Everything about them is totally different. You're exactly right.
One of the things that has fascinated me, since we're talking about basically prison and other populations where people have been in a bad place and now they're trying to get themselves to a good place, is that there are a lot of people, sadly, an awful lot of people who were not criminals who were put in prison,
right?
Who were not doing bad things. And of course, they can't take responsibility for
something they didn't do.
Yeah, they can't take responsibility for it. But the thing that amazes me is how few of them are bitter. How most of them, when they get out of jail, and we're talking people who've lost a great portion of their lives often,
right?
And yet it is not their take on it is not I'm angry, not I want to get even, but rather I want to look at the blessings. I want to find what is positive, and I want to move forward. And some of them, even for example, have received fairly large compensation, and they use that compensation not to make their lives better. I'm thinking there was one of the Central Park Five, for example, who set up a foundation and used all the money to set up this foundation to help people. I mean, so one of the things that strikes me is that facing adversity often makes human beings not more defensive, not more bitter, but more loving.
Well, it reveals yourself to yourself. When you have adversity, that's where you really reveal yourself to yourself. Mm-hmm. How you handle adversity is because it's a behavior, and you can start kicking your dog, and I'll use that as my big, whatever that means, or you can look at goodness. And I've as one, since you asked me about positivity, I come from a goodness spot. But I had to learn that. Mm-hmm. That was something that, I had opportunities, but all those things mean nothing until you do your own soul searching. You really, really, really need to do that. And that's when I met with many of these, I would say clients of the state, I would explain to them that you can't give me lip service. Number one, I hear lip service. I recognize what lip service is. I don't want lip service. And in my children, I told them the same thing. Don't give me lip service. Show me. You believe this? How are you going to demonstrate this to me? But not only to me, how are you going to show yourself that you're worthy of who you think you are? And that's really where positivity in my book comes from, and why I post the way I post. Because I sit in the morning and I say, well, how do I look at the world today? What kind of, and I mean, I have a lot of thoughts. I mean, I'm not exactly a kid anymore. So I've had a lot of things to think about. And I like to phrase them in ways that I hope people understand that we're not preaching here. I don't like preaching. I am a minister, but I don't preach. I don't preach. I'll chat with people, but even when I talk to people in groups, I don't preach. What I do is I come from a discovery process. What are you doing to discover who you are? What are your good qualities?
That's a good question. What are you doing to discover who you are?
Yes.
Right.
So let's go around among us. What are we doing to discover who we are? Because I think that process is going on all the time, don't you?
Yes, I do.
So I just recently finished an autobiographical poetry book. It's now looking for a publisher, but I call it Poetic Reliquary. And it's just an exploration of who I am and trying to figure out who I am within the context of memory. That's my latest project. Monica, what have you been doing to discover who you are?
Well, actually, I had a long time to do that the last couple of years, especially since the fire and then COVID hitting right after.
Yeah, I remember reading that.
Yeah, and everybody says, oh, the fire was terrible, then all this stuff happened. This was the first time in my life I really was in a spot where I had nothing, no TV, no anything for a while. And it was amazing, the memories, the things that would come up, because you had the time to just sit there without all this outside interference and find out who you really were, your true feelings.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of positivity out of that, even though most people would look at it as being negative. I'm always finding out who I am now every day. I think
it's an active process. I mean, you're never going to be. You're always becoming.
yeah.
That's what I've explained to many people, whether they be students of mine at the high school. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, and once I discovered that, for me, what it was meaning that you're always in a state of becoming. You're not a was. You're always an is, and actually you're an ising, because you're moving all the time. Your thoughts are always leading you somewhere. So becoming is really my favorite word, because that's what we are. What are you doing to become more of who you are? How are you discovering more of you? Or are you comparing yourself to someone else? And that's a loser's proposition. Once you get into the comparison game, my God. That's just
don't try to be like, I'm not going to try to be Ken or Celeste. We already have Ken and Celeste.
And
trying to be me?
Oh, yeah. Proposition.
Seriously, I didn't want to stop our exploration though. Celeste, what have you been doing to find out who you are?
I've come to the conclusion that I've lived many lives.
We have all, yes.
I grew up in a lot of adversity, but my family as a whole, very positive, teachers, lawyers, people like that, police officers. And, so I always felt I was adopted because I didn't do anything else like anybody in my family. I didn't really look like anyone in my family, except for when we start doing genealogy, we realize we all have the same nose. But I didn't really feel like that. And then because I was very artistic, I was a painter. I was reading very early in life. I was reading classics. My mom would go get me those books. Nobody else in my family read like I did. I liked weird music. Weird music to them was I listened to country, western, and Irish music and stuff like that, and I loved it. So then recently, though, my mom, before she passed away, told me how much I was like my dad. And I really never got to really spend a lot of time with my dad. I didn't know him that well. but from pieces of conversations with relatives, I found out he was an artist. He was very good at it. We're very much alike and going out, traveling. We're very much alike at having long periods of time to ourselves. And then when I got to actually talk with my dad late in his life before he passed away, we spent a lot of time talking, and it was just hilarious to find out how much alike we are. So now I'm starting to, even though I'm doing a lot of things for the family and ways of preserving our legacy for my grandkids, I'm also embracing that part of me that really is my dad that I'm comfortable with. And I feel like I'm just meeting the real Celeste. So I'm looking forward to, yeah, I'm looking forward to doing a lot of things, you know, this last part of my life. So I'm actually scheduling myself in my calendar to do the things that Celeste wants to do.
Good.
Okay.
And what now, Robert, to you, we already know you've been playing music for people who are shut in and elderly and all, but what have you also been doing of late to discover you? Because as you said, we're always becoming being.
Yeah, I explore a lot of, when you mentioned Indian poetry, I have been exploring a lot of Middle Eastern thought, and some of it is Islamic, some of it, but the poetry, I'm really interested in the search for meaning. I do an awful lot of that and purpose, and I like to read it in poetry from the Middle East. And Eunice Emery is somebody that I gotten into, extraordinarily famous poet in the Middle East. So what I'm on a discovery mission, and I follow whatever piques my interest if I want to read. And I'm looking here at all the books that I have. My God, I'm surrounded everywhere I go. I'm surrounded by books because I like learning, and
Yes.
and as an educator, it has really opened me up. I have gone, and I will say it this way: wherever I go, I'm comfortable because I can talk about things, because I've been curious, and when I mention things, people start speaking about them. I want to learn more. It's not about what I know. I want to learn from them.
Yes.
So I get invited, and again, with the most extraordinary time I had was recently last year in Lebanon. Well, right tail end of last year. There was the people that I interacted with were incredible. I would say that as a population was one of the smartest, intellectually speaking, that I've ever worked with. They all speak a minimum of 3 languages.
Wow.
But they have a curiosity. Oh my God, the learners, the kids, the adults. And I met, the people that I met were incredible, global experts, incredible people in engineering and medical field. Middle East is loaded with some brilliant people, and from everywhere. I mean, I'm including Israel, I'm everywhere. And I really enjoyed that. And I knew that I felt comfortable because I do speak several languages. I think we talked about this before. Right. So they found that to be fascinating. Wow, an American that can speak more than Brooklynese, you know.
Brooklynese.
But I do. I speak 3 other languages very fluently. So I was able to communicate oftentimes with people that did not speak English as well, but spoke French well, or spoke Italian well, or spoke Spanish well. So my whole background really contributes to my growth, and there is no there to get to, Monica, Ken, and Celeste. There is no such thing as there. I want to get there. There's no there.
You just keep moving.
You just keep going.
Right. You know, I think it's very interesting, though, folks, in case you haven't been keeping score here. There are 4 of us taking part in this conversation, and each one of us is approaching growth and thinking about how we grow in different ways. I think about what I write. Monica just thinks about contemplation, being just there and contemplating. Celeste thinks about looking in her ancestry and connecting to her roots. And Robert, our guest today, thinks about exploring the outside world and learning more from the outside world. And they're all valid ways to figure out who we are and keep going. It's that keep going and keep growing process. Now, of course, I sit and contemplate sometimes. I think about my parentage sometimes. Sometimes obviously I read books and stuff. But each one of us has a favored mode, or perhaps a dominant mode. And that is very interesting about humanity. The other day, I was on the phone with my brother. We were talking about an article in the latest New Yorker magazine about memory. And he is an ophthalmologist. He's retired now, but he's an ophthalmologist. And he was talking about how he has predominantly a visual memory. I'm a writer. I have primarily a verbal memory. One of the things to remember, folks, is that we are different.
That's right.
And that's what's great.
Yeah, and that is great.
Each person.
But we share the same humanity.
Yes.
Mhm.
That's the key for me.
Yes.
I will tell you a story, and Celeste, I know you'll appreciate this, because this is one of those kind of stories. My wife and I were in Atlanta, and we were doing a conference together. This was a while ago. And we went where we thought we were supposed to go. We make a right-hand turn, and what do we walk into? We walk into an African-American from Africa. Americans, but people, we were the only different faces, okay?
Mhm.
And most people would say, oh, wrong room. Now, I went, oh man, I got to find out what's going on here. Honest. Well, it turned out that there were so many languages being spoken that I wound up speaking all of the languages that I know. My wife
Wow.
doesn't speak any foreign languages, but she's just used to me being who I am. So, and one thing led to another. This incredible man walked up to us, who was a holy man from Senegal. And we started this conversation, and he gave me gifts and just said, there's something special about you.
Wow.
Thank you for coming. You brought energy into this room. This was great. And I mean, we're talking about a crowded room, Celeste. And everybody was in there. Oh my goodness, the most decorated, it was males, female. And it was fun to be with, feeling the spirit of life. That's what made it what it was. The sharing of the humanity. And I got it and they got it. We just meshed together because what we were sharing was the joy of being alive together, sharing a very happy moment.
Yes.
Rather than being intimidated, because it was intimidating. Well, I didn't think so, nor did Diana, because of the nature of her work. We are both very culturally sensitive to things. We want to learn things. But I'll not forget that feeling of walking in and saying, I don't think this is the room, but I got to stay here now.
Right.
Find out what's going on.
And look what happened when you did.
Result, yes, oh, absolutely. But I share that story because that's what I'm talking about: being open, being human, being curious, being interested in other people rather than just your own self.
Yes.
Oh, there's one thing I would comment on about your story, Robert, that it was the right room.
Yes, that's right.
It is always
Right.
the right room if
You're
we
right.
know it to
That's
be.
right. Absolutely, sir.
And
Right.
my last published work, book, is a play that I co-authored with a fellow from Nigeria, whom I happened to meet on Facebook. And we have never actually physically had the pleasure of meeting. He is a Muslim, Nigerian, and he and I have a connection that is just wonderful. And we, chat all the time now online. And I went in the right room. It's always the right room.
That's right.
You just don't know it sometimes.
That's right. If you're open, it's always the right room. Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And my life is full of stories. I mean, as I said, I love life and I love people. And I have really only, I can't think of many negative experiences. I'm talking about in travel or in, because I've done a lot of it. Um, yeah, I just really, I think those of us that possess a true love of life and joy and understand how love really works, I think we really have a shield around us to keep us from certain types. I'm not saying that they can't penetrate, but I really think that people respond to goodness. I do, just as they respond to evil.
Mm-hmm.
Of course,
Mm-hmm.
but I would prefer to live my life in under the shadow of, if you would, shadow, under the light. Let's use the word light, forget shadow. Under
Right.
the light of good, under the light of goodness, because I think that the relationships that you have, and I have tons of them. As I said, this is one right here. This is all by cyber. We've never really met each other.
No,
However, we have a connection, and I think that is what I would really like. That's, again, I say this, Celeste, because I know you're not familiar. Go to my Facebook page, check out the name of how I spell. Just go to it. See, people comment on a regular basis, and it's not like it's in a cave, but it's what I want to do is, how it all started was I saw so much negativity that I
Mhm.
wanted to counteract it. I wanted to counteract all of that negativity as best as I could, and the only way I could do it was post on Facebook what I thought.
well,
And
look how many people follow those posts.
Oh, they do.
Many.
There's a lot of them.
You're making a difference.
Well, I'd like to feel that I am, Monica, because what's important to me, and people will say to me sometimes, we like to know more. Why don't you do this? They make all the suggestions that really, to me, reek of commercialism. I don't believe that that's not for me. I understand the value of money, of course I do, and being compensated, but I really don't believe that a spiritual exchange should come down to a dollar exchange.
Exactly.
I am really, really fussy about that, and I don't believe in it because I feel as though given it to be able to articulate love, kindness, openness, and that humanity part of my life, I don't need money for that. Share it. Bring it to someone else. Don't hide
Things
it.
given freely, I have found, you get so much back from it.
That's right. Amen. And I don't even see it. I live every day very, very awe-inspired by the gift of life. And I'm very grateful
And
for
we
it.
should all appreciate that.
Amen.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. It went by
This is
so
fun.
fast.
This has been fun. And Celeste, I wish you the best with your endeavors. I mean, not only just the vertical life, but also the community piece.
Yes.
Raising awareness sometimes is not easy. And yet when you and you know this from having done it, there's a feeling inside of you when that person does make that connection with what you're sharing, that it's indescribable. It's priceless.
Right.
You just, and it's contagious. And that,
Okay.
I like the contagious part. I hope it spreads.
Monica, I just want to remind people that after the interview's over, we're going to have one of Robert's songs, I believe, right?
Yes.
And also, folks, if you look down on the show description, you'll be able to find links that might help inspire you a little bit. I'm going to suggest that today, if it's okay with everybody, that one of the links you should put in there is to Vertical Life magazine.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes,
folks,
absolutely.
And really seriously, among our many friends that Monica and I and now Celeste have made over the years, Robert Wuagneux is one of our favorites, not just because he's a fine musician, which we of course always enjoy the music, but as you've gotten to know today, he's just one of those human beings who make our lives much richer for being part of it.
And we thank you, Robert.
The pleasure was mine. Truly,
Right.
I enjoyed this. You talk about positivity and community and love and joy literally all day long, because listen, It's a gift that we have that we need to share. More people need to understand it.
We need to use it.
Yes, and give it away because it's so. And the more
Well,
you give,
speaking of love,
the more you
give love, the more you
get,
receive love.
Yeah,
that's right.
exactly.
And
Absolutely.
we were talking about that, Robert. I'm going to play a song that you performed and
Sure.
wrote, and it's all about love.
Which one is it? Is it This Perfect Day, or a Lovely Day on the Pond? Which one?
I think I'm going to do the one about the love.
I look forward to it.
Okay, with that, folks, I want to thank you so much, Robert, for spending time with us, and keep in touch.
Thank you. And I see you, and you know where you could. Celeste, you could find me. Send me to get my email address. Send me something. We'll connect. We'll all do all good stuff.
Well, I've already connected on your Facebook.
Yahoo!
All right, this is what we need more of, folks.
Anything
Type of
I'm
connection.
always open for conversation, Celeste. If you want to bounce ideas off, because what you're doing is something I believe in, and I've been very active. My wife and I have. So if we can at all provide any insight or just soundboard for you, by all means, feel free.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. Okay, folks, let's listen to some great music. Here you go. Bye-bye, all.
Bye-bye.
With the power of love, with the power of love in me, with the power of love I set myself free. I love life, life loves me, as joy does flow abundantly, miracles and wonders shall never cease. Awake each day so brand new, create your world of love and truth, forgive yourself and go free with the power of love. With the power of love in me, with the power of love I set myself free. This perfect day I shall give thanks and release. This perfect day in every way shall be complete. With the power of love, with the power of love in me, with the power of love I set myself free. Every day you are brand new, a gift of light, let it shine through. You are one with all, as are we. Make each day so brand new, create your world of love and truth, forgive yourself and be free with the power of love. With the power of love you'll see. With the power of love you'll set yourself free. This perfect day I shall give thanks and release. This perfect day